Happy late New Year to everyone watching and welcome to my weekend review of Mexico City, round 2 of the ABB FIA Formula E World Championship. Before the on-track action began, Cupra Kira Raceco revealed their new livery, taking New Year New Me quite literally. Cupra's copper branding adorning the fluorescent yellow design is said to represent the team's energy, innovation and combined drive as a partnership between two entities. I think it's an alright livery, although I prefer the black and yellow scheme that I proudly glazed over in the previous video. The striking black and yellow livery gives me Jordan vibes and I love it. It's still pretty cool and I reckon it will grow on me throughout the season. Neon McLaren also announced Alex Dunn would join the team as a reserve driver for the season. Dunn has been part of the McLaren driver development program since May last year and comes with a lot of talent and promise. I hope we'll see him behind the wheel of some Formula E machinery at some point, complementing the wave of young talent flooding into the sport. In FP1 we saw all 22 cars on track, tumbling the times as we got an idea of the competitive order for the weekend. A few drivers found the escape road at turn 1, rediscovering the limits of grip in the updated Gen 3 Evo. Once again, Porsche and Andretti were looking the favourites for the weekend, and going on history, Wehrlein has a good chance here to claw back lost points from Sao Paulo. A little bit of rain fell during the session, yet the times kept tumbling. David Beckman had a late session scare as he lost the rear in the Peraltada, with Buemi almost doing the same thing earlier. Arguably my favourite moment of practice one was during the burnouts after the checkered flag, where commentator Tom Brooks compared the scene of the burnout smoke to a Sainsbury's car park on a Saturday night.
How quickly they get. Ooh, look at the burnout there. That's one of the DS cars, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like
Jean-Luc Vaughan.
like watching a Sainsbury's car park on a Saturday night, isn't it?
What happens in your Sainsbury's on a Saturday night?
Love your work, Tom. Rounding out the top 10 in FP1 were DaCosta, Barnard, Rowland, Wehrlein, Evans, Di Grassi, Nato, Buemi, Mortara and Van Dorn. A slippery track surface meant practice 2 got off to a shaky start for some drivers, with David Beckman, Jake Dennis and Eduardo Mortara finding the turn 1 runoff early on. The sun eventually came out, but given the track temperatures, the grip levels remained low. Nick Cassidy went for a spin in the stadium section, and Jake Dennis found the escape road at turn 1 for the second time. The use of all-wheel drive in attack mode showed a new dynamic to wet driving styles, and, if the race were to be weather affected as some had predicted before the weekend, some interesting attack mode strategies could be deployed to make use of the power to the front axle. At the end of the session, the times fell and it was Jake Hughes on top of Maserati MSG, followed by Cassidy, Wehrlein, Dennis, DaCosta, De Vries, Freins, Van Dorn, Gunter and Rowland. Heading into qualifying, Evans, Barnard, Mortara, Buemi, Wehrlein, Van Dorn, Maloney, Rowland, Beckman, Di Grassi, Muller made up the first qualifying group. On a still drying track, the times came down drastically, leaving the best conditions and fastest laps right to the end of the session. At the end of Group A, Wehrlein came out on top with Rowland, Buemi and Evans advancing to the duels. That was, until Buemi was excluded from qualifying for a tyre pressure infringement, promoting Mortara into the duels. Group B consisted of DaCosta, Bird, De Vries, Ticktum, Verne, Gunter, Nato, Cassidy, Dennis, Hughes and Freins. A dramatic end to the session sees Max Gunter vault his way to the top of the timesheets, with Dennis, Cassidy and DaCosta also making it through to the duels. That was, until Cassidy's lap time was deleted, promoting John-Eric Verne into the duels. Into the duels and quarter-final 1 saw Mitch Evans versus Oliver Rowland. Evans set a 1:11.338, but Rowland's neater, tidier lap beat Evans to advance to the next stage of the duels. In quarter-final 2, Eduardo Mortara faced the reigning champion Wehrlein. Mortara understeered through the first corner, going wide and losing over half a second to Wehrlein in an instant, giving him an easy ride to beat Mortara by almost half a second. Quarter-final 3 saw DaCosta and Dennis against each other in what was predicted to be a close fight. Dennis held a great fight in the first 2 sectors, but the lap time fell away in the final sector, and by half a second he was beaten by DaCosta, meaning both Tag Heuer Porsches advanced to the next round. The final quarter-final saw a DS Penske derby with Verne and Gunter against each other. Verne's incredible lap of a 1:11.190 pushed Gunter out by 3.5 tenths. In the first semi-final duel, we were treated to a repeat of Sao Paulo, with Wehrlein and Rowland against each other once again. While Rowland has great form and speed in qualifying, Wehrlein is considered quite the specialist around the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez. Wehrlein created a 2/10 advantage through Sector 1, but Rowland broke even after the middle sector, even creating an advantage through the stadium section. However, a snap of oversteer into the Peraltada ruined Rowland's run to the line, and Wehrlein snatched the duel win by 0.182 seconds. Later, Rowland claimed he wasn't good enough and should have easily beaten the reigning champion. Spicy words. And honestly, I love the great fight talk from the Nissan driver. Knowing you've got all the resources to fight up front is exactly what the Japanese marquees needed in recent Formula E history to prove their worth against the might of Jaguar and Porsche. The second semi-final duel saw ex-DS Techeetah teammates Da Costa and Verne go head-to-head. Could Da Costa advance to an all-Porsche duel for pole position? A slightly untidy yet blistering lap of a 110.739 from Da Costa secured his place in the fight for pole position. Jean-Eric Verne still did an impressive lap with a 10.923. So, it was time for the final duel for pole position and 3 extra championship points. It was all to play for between the Porsche drivers, with immense pressure on their shoulders. With Wehrlein aiming for back-to-back poles at Mexico and Da Costa proving his hunger for title contention, both drivers showed great commitment to their laps. Da Costa created a 10th advantage in the first sector, but missed the apex in the chicane and dropped almost 3/10 behind Wehrlein. A snap of oversteer reduced Wehrlein's advantage, but he kept it neat enough for pole position, beating his teammate with a time of 10.984. That's 2.314 seconds quicker than his own pole time from last year, once again highlighting the capabilities of the new Gen 3 Evo. The rest of the top 10 looked like this, with the Porsches locking out the front row, followed by Verne, Rowland, Evans, Gunter, Dennis Mortara, Maloney and Sam Bird. With all 22 cars lined up, the lights went out for a clean getaway up front. Wehrlein covered off his teammate and the Porsches marched 1 and 2 through turn 1, followed by Jean-Eric Verne, Oliver Rowland and Mitch Evans. Evans was shuffled down by Verne, Dennis and Gunter, but at the front of the pack made it round lap 1 cleanly. The same couldn't be said down the order, however, as Dan Ticktum found his Cupra Kiro facing the wrong way after Zane Maloney barged Jake Hughes into him. The conservative pace of the Porsches up front compressed the pack in the opening laps, provoking 17th place Taylor Barnard to take his attack mode first, with a 4-minute stint to push his way forwards in the compressed pack. He lost no ground taking his attack mode because of the Ticktum incident which unfolded right behind him and created a gap in the field. By the end of his 4 minutes, he made his way provisionally to 11th before letting his teammate Sam Bird pass. Speaking of Bird, he had some words for Mahindra driver Nick De Vries after being lunged on the inside at turn 5 and having a front row seat for watching De Vries' aggressive defending against Barnard. 8th place Andretti driver Nico Müller was the first of the lead group to take attack mode, on lap 10, seeking to make up more places and break up the leading bunch. He disposed of De Vries, Evans, Gunter and almost Dennis before creating a gap for Dennis to take his attack mode without losing positions. This triggered Wehrlein and Verne to take their attack modes, which compressed the lead group. Rowland shuffled past Da Costa, compromising him and allowing Dennis and Verne to also slip through. On lap 16, at the end of Dennis' first attack mode stint, he was on the rear of Wehrlein and made a sensational overtake in the stadium section. At the same time, Rowland and Da Costa took their first attack modes as well. Da Costa took the lead from Jake Dennis on the exit of turn 1 on lap 19. Müller blinked first once again as he took his second attack mode stint. He made his way up to his second place teammate when Dennis himself took his second attack mode alongside Wehrlein. Müller played on the defence against the Porsche to protect Dennis. Meanwhile, Da Costa's advantage in the lead ensured he stayed ahead of Wehrlein when he swooped in for his final attack mode. Da Costa didn't wait long to grab the lead off the Andretti driver, lunging him before the stadium section on lap 23. Wehrlein followed through in the chicane on the following lap. With 8 laps to go, a safety car was called as David Beckman's Cupra Kiro was stranded on the outside of turn 12. He was struck by Lucas Di Grassi, making a move on the inside which broke his steering and incapacitated Beckman's car. The pack munched up behind the safety car with the top 8 order as follows: Da Costa, Wehrlein, Dennis, Rowland, Verne, Gunter, Müller and Evans. Rowland was still in his first attack mode stint when the safety car pulled in, and Evans still had one more to use. Rowland decisively shuffled his way to the front, slicing past Dennis, Wehrlein and Da Costa before another safety car was called. Mitch Evans, who had a golden opportunity with one more attack mode remaining, found himself in the back of Nico Müller, who claimed to be struggling with power cuts. Coming to lap 33, the safety car came into the pits and Rowland took the restart at the earliest opportunity. He led the final laps to the finish line ahead of Da Costa and Wehrlein to take the first non-Porsche powertrain victory in Mexico since Season 7. I know I've already mentioned this, but it's honestly great to see Nissan up there consistently in the hands of Rowland, He's immensely quick and he deserves these decisive race wins. So too does the Nissan team and the wider Nissan group, arguably in the hardest few years as a company. Rounding out the top 10 were Da Costa, Wehrlein, Dennis, Verne, Gunter, Van Dorn, De Vries, Muller and Jake Hughes. The results saw Da Costa move up to first in the standings, ahead of Mitch Evans and Oliver Rowland with 1 win apiece. Pascal Wehrlein moved up to fourth ahead of Taylor Barnard, Jake Dennis, Sam Bird and John-Eric Verne, with the Mahindra pair of De Vries and Mortara completing the top 10. Round 2 was certainly a slow burner compared to Sao Paulo. However, there are clear signs the new attack mode is providing some very tense and exciting battles on track, and much more than just the Benetton-style racing we've seen in previous years. It's great to see not only Porsche and Jaguar, but also Nissan-powered cars fighting up at the top. I think this season is shaping out to be a real cracker of a fight between the likes of Wehrlein, Da Costa, Dennis and Rowland. Now that I've covered the weekend, I want to complain a little. ITV completely ignored Formula E's existence this weekend. The bastards, across all their channels, not a single session was broadcast on TV. And without a proper TV guide for ITVX, there was no telling if they would even bother showing it there. Eventually, I did find out ITVX was broadcasting the race in full, but it was too late as I'd already dived into coursework and streaming other channel content. Thanks ITV, that was super helpful. Anyway, on to the next one.